Hello everybody and welcome back to Right Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So Iowa Senator Joni Ernst, she's kind of been a little bit iffy, a very, I guess you would say, pre-Trump era Republican to her core in many ways, in a very MAGA, uniquely MAGA state, I would say. Iowa voted for Obama twice. It actually voted for Al Gore in 2000, narrowly flipped to Bush in 2004, was kind of a swing state, but by no means was it a red-leaning swing state, let alone a red state, until Donald Trump came along, which didn't make a lot of sense because it's very rural, it's very white, it's very working class. You know, usually you would expect that Iowa, especially because it's in the Great Plains, would kind of be a state that would go Republican, but it's not like as religious as like Kansas or Oklahoma, and that might have played a role. But as time has gone on, there's been a little bit of like depolarization by religion of working class whites. We're seeing it with other denominations. For example, white Catholics didn't used to be as Republican as they are now. But regardless, you had Joni Ernst. She won in 2014, which is a year that Democrats just forgot to show up to the polls, and she won in 2020, and she underran Donald Trump against some no-name Democrat. And now she's retiring. She threatened to vote against a few of Trump's cabinet picks. She is somebody that has been very mediocre, and now she is going to be on her way out officially as of now. And Democrats, some of them are just going out there and they're saying, well, we're going to have a shot in Iowa. And some Democrats actually are having better takes than some of like the panicking type of Republicans that are like, oh, another Republican seat that's going to be competitive because the incumbent's not running. Like the whole Tom Tillis thing, where they thought Tom Tillis, who is hated by independents, hated by Democrats, hated by a lot of the base, they thought that he would be able to go out there and defeat Ray Cooper, more commonly known as Roy Cooper, but becoming increasingly known as Ray Cooper, instead of like a generic Republican that has appeal, like Money Mike Whatley. He's got a lot of money. I call him Money Mike. So they're trying to go out there and cope about this, and it's like, if anything, we get an upgrade. I don't know who it's going to be. Could be Ashley Hinson. I think she'd win by a lot. Somebody like Matt Whitaker probably would be more like Trump-aligned as well. But at the same time, would he be able to win by the wider margin? Because Hinson does have more like political pull in the state. I don't know. I think it's probably going to be Hinson, but we'll wait and see. Regardless, it does seem as if you're going to get an upgrade over Joni Ernst, and you're going to get a better Republican senator. And if anything, Republicans are going to hold the seat by a wider margin than they originally would have held it by if Ernst was running for re-election. But this blue Iowa dream for the Democrats, I don't know where it started. I mean, it's a state like Florida, if anything, except it went red, a lot more red than Florida was going. And you could see this meme right here where the states that are redder than Iowa or are more competitive than Iowa are in red. So let's say it was the inverse and Republicans won the state that was the most equivalent to Iowa, and then every state redder than that from the 2024 results. You're taking a state like New York. Connecticut is probably around there, but I think the margin there was a little bit wider. I think it was closer to 14. But looking at this, more competitive or redder than Iowa, Republicans would have 412 electoral votes. So Democrats genuinely believe that in this day and age, you can have like a 412 electoral vote landslide. I don't really think so. And by the way, it's a Senate seat. It's not like a governor's seat. I think the New York governorship probably does sadly stay blue this time around. It's going to be closer than the presidential year, probably. But regardless, one thing I do know about New York's governorship is it's a hell of a lot more likely to flip than Iowa's Senate race. I think the Iowa governorship could be closer, but Rob Sand, he's the state auditor. In Missouri, the state auditor won in 2018. Then she ran for governor in 2024 against, somebody who was an incumbent, but was not really all that popular and was somebody who had not previously been elected to the office, and he was able to go out there and he won by like 17. I'm not saying you're going to see that, but I think that Iowa's governorship is going to not really be all that competitive at the end of the day. Maybe like a 6-7 point win for the Republicans, and then the Senate seat's probably going to be closer to 10. And then past that point, you'll see all the House races probably stay red. Some of them might be more competitive, but still Republicans would probably be favored in those seats, and then it's just not a state that Democrats are going to stand the really biggest shot in. Why? Because you have the fact that Republicans lost a special election as they were losing them by a lot before Donald Trump won in 2024, when people actually showed up to the polls. And I found this interesting, because the last time a non-incumbent in a non-special election won a Senate seat in a state that voted 10 points for the opposing party in the previous or concurrent presidential election, I know that's a lot to take in, but that would be what would be this case, and that was 2010. So for a Democrat, it was 2008. It was in Alaska. I actually think Alaska, if Peltola runs, I don't think she'd win, but I think she could make things interesting. Keyword is interesting, meaning it could be a little bit closer. Because Alaska is a weird state. States like Maine, Alaska, even Arizona splits their tickets, but Maine and Alaska are way weirder. But Arizona was like that state where you saw these splits, where Trump won by 3.5, and then a narrow win for Sinema in 18, or Trump winning by 5.6 with a narrow win for Gallego in 24. And the other example, closer than Arizona, would be Michigan, where it was very close. You had a little middle-of-the-night triumph, interesting, for Alyssa Slotkin over Mike Rogers, and she only won by 19,000 votes. The Libertarian Party candidate ruined it again, got 57,000, which was 3 times the amount for victory there. So again, for the Democrats out there that think that Iowa's competitive because it's an open seat, I don't think it's going to happen. Look at Joni Ernst's baggage. This is one of your accounts, by the way. And I'm not using that to promote the account or to promote the agenda, but you would see ads that would be spliced up like this when she was asked about Medicaid. And there's so many ways to answer it. You could say the people that are being removed are people mainly that are like the unemployed basement-dwelling gamer in their 30s that doesn't even use his insurance, and that would kind of save the system some money. So, it would pay for some of these tax cuts or whatever. Instead, she says, well, we're all going to die one day, so who cares? Like, that's how it comes off. She's a moron. The old guard of the Republican Party is disastrous. People like this are electoral liabilities. It's true. And if she was to run, I think she would win. But I think that somebody else in there that actually has some political understanding of the lay of the land in their own state, not in Washington, D.C., in these like neocon think tanks or whatever, that other person's going to do better. You had a special election. We covered it in the last video. Abysmal turnout. The Democrats won the seat, but the person they were running against was somebody who claimed 9/11 never happened. I don't even really understand why. And then he wanted to ban rape exceptions for abortion. Whether you agree with that point or disagree with that point, in a state like Iowa that is, not really that super pro-life, if it's like an 8-week ban, they could live with it. But if you're, touching that third rail, I don't think there's any state where that polls above 20%. Democrats capitalized on an 80-20 issue. They won. I'm shocked they didn't even win by more, but it's one of the rare instances where the Republicans somehow spent more money. That's probably why it wasn't like a 40-point, 50-point overperformance. But again, Democrats just can't cope with the fact that they can't flip the Senate. They can't. You're not winning Iowa or Texas, Trump plus 13, 14, Alaska, Trump plus 14, or Ohio, Trump plus 12. You might be able to flip North Carolina, but I still think that people are really not grasping at the fact that it's still a state that is very difficult for Democrats to win. Yes, it can be close, but the midterm turnout environment in North Carolina, especially with the way the registrations are going in the state, it's not going to favor the Democrats as much as they would think. Black turnout is probably not going to be at the percent of the state that it would be in a presidential year. And even though some younger black voters are moving to the right, at the same time, it's still like a little bit of a drop-off of a group that votes 85% Democrat, even if it's not 90 anymore, is disastrous for the Democrats. So, let's say Republicans get North Carolina, Democrats don't have a shot to gain a seat. Now, in Maine, if Janet Mills runs, maybe things get interesting, but they're not finding anyone. They're running a Bernie bro lunatic who, again, in his first ad, he did a great job trying to cover up for his stuff, but Collins has a lot of money. She has a lot of political pull in the state. she likely goes out there and wins again. For all we know, she gets the Jared Golden endorsement, and he does that because he thinks that maybe it'll like help him keep his seat or something. Who knows? But regardless, Georgia will be close. Democrats very well, I'd say, are the favorites now, but I think it's going to be a very close state. Michigan, very close state. Propensity favors Democrats in Michigan. In a midterm year for sure, but they don't have a candidate. Republicans do have a candidate. So again, it's kind of a little bit of a gray area. Georgia, Michigan, they're going to be competitive. They're still going to have to pour money into New Hampshire. So again, even if they got North Carolina, Republicans still have a floor of like 52. Maybe you say 51. And in the process, they're probably knocking out Cornyn in the Texas primary. Ernst is gone. Tillis is gone. Bill Cassidy probably could be gone in the primary down there in Louisiana. So, the only rhino they're going to have ending the cycle with a victory probably is going to be Susan Collins, which again is fine because it's Maine. The best you can do in Maine probably is somebody like a Collins. So 2028, now it seems like Murkowski could be out the door. You have Mike Dunleavy coming out yesterday and saying that he very likely plans to run for her Senate seat. He's somebody that's a stronger candidate than Shabaka was in 2022. He's got an approval rating in the state as a governor in the 60s. I think he would be a great get for Republicans, and hopefully before then, regardless, they repeal the disastrous ranked choice voting system that is nonsensical. Most people don't understand it, and it was put in there for the sake of Murkowski's corruption so she could hold on to that Senate seat that should belong to a state that elected Trump by 14, not the Washington, D.C. swamp that has done so much to buy that seat. So regardless, we'll see what happens in the midterms in some of these competitive races, but I'm really only seeing 3 that are really competitive. I don't see Iowa as competitive, or Ohio. We saw the polls with Sherrod Brown. There was a poll in Alaska that had Peltola losing by 5, and it had Trump's approval rating at like -11 in a state he won by 14. So again, that poll you can probably throw in the garbage can, but for the reasons that Sullivan should be leading Peltola by more, not less. But anyways, guys, make sure you guys like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.